mistakes are good. I always tell my families and my kids, failure is an option. I had somebody say, oh, you must hate failure. And I'm like, well, I embrace failure. It's not that I enjoy failure, but there's always an opportunity to learn.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Polaris Connection, connecting parents of autistic children with industry experts. Each week, we navigate the world of autism together, bringing you real conversations from specialists who truly get it. The journey is challenging, but you don't have to walk it alone. So settle in, get cozy, let's connect, and do some good. I am your host, Brad Broyles, and I'm here with my Danny Tanner and Joey Gladstone co-host Nathan Palmer and Aaron Kaczmarek. Guys, how you doing?
I am fantastic.
Couldn't be better, Brad. Love the energy and cannot believe we are already in June.
Yes. Can you believe that? We're in June and Father's Day is just right around the corner, Mr. Danny Tanner.
Thank you for the nod to the famous dads of the past.
Well, it suits you so well. You're clean. You're always doing good things. You have everybody loves you.
Now, does our audience know who Danny Tanner is? You need to explain.
I do not know who Danny Tanner is.
No way. You've never seen Full House?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, don't you remember Full House?
Okay.
Yes.
Right. Yeah,
Danny Tanner, and then you're Joey because you're a kid at heart.
That's true.
So for the Gen Xers out there, nod to your childhood. For the rest of you that may be a little younger, it's a good watch if ever you want to do some throwback sitcom TV.
Yes, I love it. Now, of course, I'm Uncle Jesse. I'm a rocker at heart. Well, folks, today, as we have a very special Father's Day podcast. Father's Day is right around the corner, and we want to talk a little bit more about the secret of fatherhood and how to do that in a neurotypical environment. But before, Nathan, tell us a little bit of the updates of Polaris Academy, what's going on. A lot of things that we're in the news a lot. There's a lot of things out there. We just wanted to bring our audience some quick updates and some clarifications of things that they hear in the news today.
Yeah, I'd love to. For those that, because we have listeners all over, for those that don't know the Polaris Academy background, it's a school for autistic and neurodivergent kids, and it was really the result of a question. What would happen if you smash all the supports of autism together in one place? If you take therapy-trained, clinical-trained, education-trained individuals, so teachers, therapists from ABA, speech, OT backgrounds, and you just make them all work cohesively in one combined staff, and the result was Polaris Academy. And it's been, it's been a ride.
Yes, it has.
We started with one campus for 100 kids, and since then have begun collaborating with multiple public school districts, opening 2 campuses in the Mesa Public School District schools that have been wonderful collaborators. And, started with 10,000 square feet. I think now we're going to be somewhere close to almost 90 when you factor all of them together between our Starlight Initiative. And yeah, it's been, Brad, I say this a lot in the past, and I think I've said it even on a couple podcasts. My wife and I we were unwillingly thrown into the world of autism, when our son got his diagnosis. And we've talked about, I think one of our last episodes, we talked about, finding yourself in Holland when you were planning to go to Italy. Yeah. So we just took this journey that was placed upon us. We had the itinerary change.
It gives me a new appreciation for the Dutch.
And it has been so refreshing to see how many people have taken that journey with us and just voluntarily, yourself included, Aaron, and everybody around us, jump into this world of autism to support all of us that had our tickets changed. And Polaris, I think, is just a great shining example of that we're doing something right, because it has grown faster, I think, than any of us could have ever dreamt. And it is pulling us all along for the ride of our lives. So couldn't be more excited about everything coming.
Well, and it is exciting, and it's cool to see what we're doing. Aaron, with you, coming from a world of education, jumping into the world of neurodiversity with autistic kiddos, what's been the biggest change that you've experienced throughout this process? A lot of our families when they start in, one belief system before they start working with autistic children, and they had to change behavior. What's a big behavior that you've had to change and adapt to?
It was really the blending of the therapies and the ABA therapy and the BCBA, which I was very unfamiliar with almost 30 years in public education. We did have BCBAs, but it was typically a gatekeeper to a more self-contained program. And when I saw the magic of a BCBA and ABA therapy and how it truly supported the students and allowed them the entry point into the academics, that was the game changer for me. And just the lens that BCBAs and therapists have. This last year we added OT, and I knew of OT, but I never saw really the value. I've learned things about just balance in that central nervous system, and then the muscle development, all those things that bring about calmness to my students that I never had. So really delving into the therapy world has been a game changer for me, both as a dad, as a husband, and absolute as a professional.
Yeah. Well, and I can speak to that as well too, Aaron. Like before doing this, there's a lot of things I didn't really understand about the brain and the body movement and whatnot, and learning, the best practices of ABA therapy and then also occupational therapy. And then we got into pathological demand avoidance. It's been an incredible ride. Now, Nathan, I know that you've worked more in the world of construction. We talked about before some development concepts that we've done in Polaris Academy that people can do in their own homes. Can you remind the audience of some features that they might see at Polaris Academy that they can incorporate at home?
Yeah, I mean, the low-hanging fruit is going to be lighting and sound. Lighting fixtures are a huge feature. It's probably one of our biggest expense items, just having adaptive lighting. And that speaks to both the color, right, the tone of the light, as well as the ability to dim it. So changing the light for what activity you're doing, a little bit brighter, more focused light if you're doing something that requires more attention, being able to dim and soften it when you want to lower that down. We try to avoid the blue or the daylight lights, right? That's typically can be a little harsh. It's great for maybe a standard admin work environment, not good for kids on the spectrum. So that middle tone, that bright white, I think it's around the 3,800 to 4,000 Kelvin range is where we tend to land, is really where you want to be on the tone. And there are so many fixtures now that you can do to swap out things in your home that are inexpensive from Home Depot, buying a dimmer switch for the wall. These are a lot of them do-it-yourself type of things that just make a difference. Our coves, I think, are one of my favorite things. We accidentally discovered the idea of a cove, and
I remember that day too.
Yeah, and so if you'll let me explain what it is. Why
I remember looking at a open floor plan, concrete floor, and we're like, we can either put a closet here, or I have a crazy idea.
I think I'm known for the crazy idea days. Yeah. So listen, one of my frustrations in touring schools, and we have talked about this before, is the sensory room. Mm-hmm. We talk about that a lot because the way sensory rooms have become used more frequently are as almost like a fun center. So if you Google that on your computer, sensory room, you're going to see these rooms that have these LED lights and these beanbag chairs and swings and books and toys, and any kid in any state is going to go into that space and be just fine. Yeah. So they work great. The problem becomes in the behavior programming. So we do this a lot in the school, and even on the podcast, we talk about behaviors communication. So what am I communicating to a kid when he gets dysregulated and I take him to that room? Okay, what we're saying is, hey, when you act this way, you get to go to this space.
I know, and I always make the comparisons like, Brad, if you act out, you better stop because you have to play Madden football for the next 2 hours.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, darn it.
Now we love it as practitioners because it's a quick fix, right? But it's just like giving your kid the candy every time they nag you. You're rewarding the wrong behavior. Mm-hmm. And so what's become a tool has almost become a crutch because it's reinforcing and teaching. These kids are smart. They all come to us as these magical Houdinis. They know how to get out of an unpreferred task, and they know what happens, when they do it. And as soon as they learn, there's a reward. There's this fun space. It makes that behavior increase. So we switch the game, and we have coves. So these coves are literally little alcoves in our hallway. They're not corners in a room. Isolationist practices in autism, I think, are one of the biggest travesties, and it's where we've kind of gone wrong. Because anytime you take a kid that gets dysregulated and you separate them, even if you're saying, I'm trying to give them your space, but when you separate them from the group and you say, you have to be over there, not here, I don't care what the intention is. What you're telling them is what you're doing is wrong. It's not acceptable. It doesn't belong in this space. And no matter your good intentions, you are ingraining shame and lack of confidence and guilt for what is to them just a normal experience. And we wanted to change that. So right in our open hallways, like you said, we had these alcoves. And it was this accidental space. We had a mess up on our drawings. It created this deviation in the wall. It was like a 2-foot nook. And to your point, Brad, could we do a closet? Do we frame across? Yeah, and I'm standing there in the chalk line, and there was this seat I sat in once that had like fabric on the sides and the top. So when you sat down in the seat, you like sat in the seat.
Yes.
And the sound dynamic changed, and it was like cozy, and it just felt like home. And I'd seen, if you've gone to like carnivals and you see those sound boxes.
Well, I remember seeing that at a buddy of mine works at Zillow, and they do like these sound boxes.
Yeah.
So like you can go in there and just scream at the top of your lungs and nobody can hear you.
Yeah, we call them the fishbowl, right? You have to have windows in it because otherwise it'd be a black hole. But you go into this box and you're just on display. No neurodivergent kid in their right mind is going into that box for everybody to stare at them. You're trying to get some quiet time alone. We're just like, hi, everybody. Look at the weird kid in the box. So we don't make it as an odd space. It's literally a bench right in our open hallway. But when you sit back in this alcove, we've lined it with this acoustic felt on 3 sides. And sound is vibration. So when you lean back, even though you're right out in the open, the sound dampens, and it will sound like you're in a private closed room, even though you're right there in the open. And in the open's key. You're seeing somebody in the one across the hall. You're seeing kids walk by. You're seeing staff. So you're not isolated. In fact, we're not hiding you. We're all here together.
Inside, yes.
They're decorated nice. It's not a timeout, but you can sit there as long as you want, and you can just acclimate. The thing is, it's not rewarding. There's no toys there. We have little desks so they can stay on task with work. It's like quiet study time. But over time, their bodies settle and regulate. But in our classroom, that's where we have all the functional tools, our programmable Legos, our write and wipe desktops, our interactive games, and social group time. That's the fun zone. And so the kids that are used to escaping class to get to these sensory rooms, now they escape really to just a place that accommodates, but it doesn't reward. And after, whether it's 30 seconds or 30 minutes, they all kind of get to this place of, hey, how do I get back to class? Because this is nice, but I'm bored.
Right.
And now the classroom is the preferred environment, and it completely flipped the game on behavior. When we first opened, Aaron remembers, those nooks were buzzing nonstop. By the end of the first year, it was maybe a third as frequent. And a lot of our kids learned to self-place, self-remove. So they're learning advocacy skills to self-regulate. It's been a game changer. So at home, how do you create this? Any alcove, any space where you can create soft materials. You can do this with sheets, with towels, with blankets, and you just create a spot that they can sit in. Again, not removed. You don't want to make this a out of the way space. You don't want isolation, but just let them sit in that comfort, and they regulate and they can reset, and it's an accommodation. It's not a reward. And that's the differentiator.
And you know, what's interesting too, on your point, we saw a lot of students there at first, but then over the course of the school year, a lot of our teachers used it as a place that they can like sit and be quiet. And Mr. K, you used it a lot.
I did almost our entire Cognia report, which was well over 100 pages, and I'm super ADHD in that cove. And to Nathan's point, I loved being in the center of the action. I wasn't isolated. I wasn't in my office. I wasn't hidden away in this little cove. I loved being in the action. I love having the kids come sit to me. So it was not a punitive space. It was a very purist space. So the kids would come out and, what are you doing, Mr. Kaczmarek? And I'm working on this report. And the ability to function and do work in there changed it as a resource. And the kids wanted to go there and they enjoyed sitting there. And then they're like, all right, I'm good. I'm going back to class. And so it was very natural and holistic. And that was the beauty of the Cove. As an educator, we've done that my entire life. We'd set a couple desks or chairs outside, but that acoustic felt and that sitting into allowed you to focus. And I have a hard time focusing. I am that guy squirrel. I'm hammy on over the hedge. And so what happens is when you get in there, it really gets you locked in. And so it's just wonderful. And as Nathan said, you're on display with your peers. Mm-hmm. It's not isolation. It is social.
Well, and before we get to our Father's Day special, there's a few things I wanted to address real quick. One, Polaris Academy is involved with this collaboration with a public school entity here, which is Mesa Public Schools. Mm-hmm. Nathan, can you speak to that, and why is that historic, and why is that important, and how come this hasn't happened before in the way that we're doing it, and what does that mean to the community?
Yeah, Aaron would probably speak better to that than I am. He's really the connection that helped make that happen because he came from that public school world. But when he first posited the idea that there might be this collaboration, it was a pipe dream. We always thought that what we did could only happen in the private space. Nobody had done this kind of a mashup before. And in fact, I don't even think that the public world would allow us to do what we're doing. It's cost prohibitive. It's really rare. And a lot of times private is seen as competitive to public. Aaron had dinner with one of the reps from Mesa that was looking at options for some of their school space, and just bringing up what we did, they did not see us as competitive. And when we met with their board very early on and explained the population that we're helping, they're like, you know what, we've been trying to find a solution for this population as well. We can't execute the way you are. From the very get-go, it was ultra collaborative, and it wasn't, just trying to them solve a problem like, will you come help us fill space? No, they made space. They were very, very proactive in bringing us in, and it's now to the point where we're setting up times to actually train their staff in some of the techniques we've learned for the autism population. So having a private and a public work together on the same public campus and offer this, diversity of services to this population, it's been groundbreaking. I'm hoping it's a model for other schools in the future.
Well, meeting with Andy Forlis and Matt Strom and the school board of Mesa Public Schools, they saw us as complementary, not competitive. Mm-hmm. And that complementary mindset, and I appreciate it. It was a bold move for them because they got a lot of backlash because we are seen as competitive. But once you see it in application and you understand the needs and how we're able to service differently, it really supports the system. And now that I'm in the buildings working with these amazing principals that were colleagues of mine in the past, they're excited to learn about also what I've learned about how therapy and education are one and the same.
Well, and how can you speak to that with our friends that live in Ohio, Tennessee, Florida, Texas? Like, how can we help change that paradigm shift to where organizations of what we do are not competitive, we're collaborative, and we want to help the general population just as much as a public school does?
Takes an open mind. It really takes some innovators and some leaders to do that. It takes a school board and it takes a superintendent willing to open it up. It takes educating the community and it having educators jump into this arena and seeing us as collaborative. Scottsdale has been a huge resource of understanding how we are complementary. They have available space as well, and they're very adamant about it can't be competitive. It can't continue to shrink our enrollment, but it actually has to be an added value. And they truly see that. And so having those very business-like conversations, because we have to. We're an organization that serves all of our people. I'm an educator. And having that business sense is incredibly important because once you see the logistics and the financial positive impact to both a public school and to this private setting, and then ultimately the most important product is the family that you're servicing, we're actually bringing families back into the campus. So it just takes somebody to have the conversation and look at it differently.
Yeah. And Nathan, how can we begin those conversations nationwide? Because it's working well here in Mesa, Arizona. We want to spread this same message across the nation. That's why we have a podcast.
I guess that'd be an ask to our listeners, Brad. It's just spread the word. What we're doing here, we can do because of a lot of state policy, but that doesn't exist everywhere. So talk to your local leaders, share the message of what we're doing here. And school choice is a hot topic right now. And there's pros and cons with it. I think what we're doing is a really resounding resource of why it can be a wonderful, great thing, especially for specialized populations. So ask questions of your local leaders, share this podcast. Let the world know what we're doing, and we don't play our cards close to our chest.
We give it all away. We're the worst gamblers.
Yeah, we are. Yeah. There's no poker face here.
No, we're horrible.
It brings it up. I have had several outside schools come into our tours on Thursday night, and you can spot them a mile away, and we're just open. When we've tried to visit other campuses, they're very closed off, and parents are always shocked. They're like, well, can I come and see the campus? We're like, of course. We do live in a society where we want our parents involved. And so opening up what we do, we're just an open book.
Right. And so we invite that to anyone. If you'd like to come see our campuses, see what we're doing. Mesa is a very easy place to fly to.
It was the first autism certified city in the world. I think we started here for a reason. And doing great things.
Fly down and come take a look at us. Now, also, guys, we have some big things that are coming in this here at the end of the year, at the end of the summer, end of the year. Can you guys explain what's the new things that people can see from Polaris Academy here in the next few months?
Well, the biggest is our high school. We have Brent Gardner, who is a district director of actually gifted and talented, is running this campus. He's brought an incredibly specialized team to come in here and support our students. The fact that we're providing so many pathways for our students, putting the parents in the driver's seat, knowing that the parent is absolutely included into that rollout of their child. Is it college bound? Is it credentialed or some type of certification within the workforce? Or is it just, functional living? And so we have a pathway for all of them. We actually had an exciting person that we'll announce later on that really is an asset to us, to pairing our students to industry and job experts so that they can become independent learners and putting them in workplace opportunities where they thrive. Because sometimes people underestimate what our students are, and working with this specific population, we do call it superpowers. These are gifts that these children have, and to find that. But yes, they do have the areas, and sometimes we as individuals, and I see it really tough for the parents that people focus on the things that aren't going well. But if we change that lens and see the glass half full as opposed to half empty, it's a game changer. And that's really what the therapists have done for me.
Well, speak more to that, Aaron. Like, what makes our high school or Polaris Academy at Usury Pass, the high school that's being developed right now, different than any other high school that an autistic child has an option to go to?
Well, hopefully it's not different than any other high school. See, what our families want is they want that experience, but they don't want to be isolated and left out. So hopefully it mimics that of a traditional. Now, obviously, we don't have enough space to be a full comprehensive, but we want to offer every experience. But with the integration of the therapies, it's really a masterpiece that has not been created yet, and to see the evolution and to see the conversations. And I guarantee that what we start out on August 6th will look very different come September 6th, October 6th, and then November, because it took us about a year to really figure out what Polaris is, when our first one. And that's the beauty. Brad, you said it. You said we will always be a startup company, whether we're in year 1 or 30. And I think that mentality resonates with our families and with our educators, that we always have to be on the edge. We cannot get comfortable and just say, okay, that's just the way we do it. That's not our mindset.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of the reason why we have this podcast and our amazing guests that we've introduced to our audience nationwide. These are forward thinkers. They're educators. They're in the trenches. And we wanted to share that with our audience so that they too can also be empowered as we are being empowered as well. It's like, I feel like we're all discovering this together. Like, we're all in this journey together. And as we do that, we're all going to grow and elevate together.
Well, in the high school, a lot of my families, they want the dance, they want the prom, they want the athletics, they want the trades, they want the specialties. And so how we create that in a neurodivergence friendly environment, that's the trick. So it really is the blending of those things and bringing them together. And so I'm just thrilled to see it.
Awesome.
And the biggest news on the educational side is at Dobson Ranch, the music. I am so excited to see the music. Music is a passion of mine. You both are incredible musicians. I'm just a consumer consumer of music, but
Of what, reggae music?
I love my reggae music, but music is very therapeutic for me. You know, I can have a stressful day and that is my calming zone. And we have somebody, and I'm so excited to see what he's going to do. And he has an autistic child. He's actually an industry expert. We'll bring him on the air. I'll leave that to happening later. Yeah. I mean, he's incredible. And to see that we've given him a blank canvas, and he's talked to me. He's done it for 8 years in another school. He's talking about, hey, we're going to do music production. We're going to do music performance. We're going to do general music understanding. So I'm super excited about seeing what happens at Dobson Ranch with our kids, because that's an experience that our families don't always get in these alternate experiences.
Yeah. Nathan, anything else that we're missing that our parents should know?
Yeah, well, Aaron talked about putting our parents in the driver's seat, but I'm most excited about putting our kids in the driver's seat because we are bringing driver's ed this year, which is for me.
That was a good twist. I like that one. And I'm like, well, where's he going with this?
No, that's I mean, as a dad,
all I know is I'm going to be doing it too.
Maybe
I can't wait to see this.
Maybe I'm jumping into the dad segment too quick, but that's probably where we're going anyways. As a dad, that gave me some anxiety about getting my neurodiverse kid ready for the road and having a full-on simulator with wraparound screen and haptic feedback, like a legit driving experience in the comfort of a school. I mean, yeah, like I cannot wait for that. That's my biggest unveiling. I can't wait to show the world, but that's coming this fall too.
That's.
Can I bring my boys into it because they drive too?
Well, they'll have to wait their turn.
I mean, they're going to have to wait. And your boys are big.
They are big.
I don't know if they're going to be able to
fit into it.
Well, let's just kind of lead that in. And before we get to our dad segment, there's a few things we just want to share with the audience. We have our open house on the 24th of July. So of all those, please come over and come take a look at it. We're also having our annual gala, which is on October 22nd. We like to invite the public too. And then Nathan, is this too early to announce? This next year in the springtime, we're going to have an annual conference called Autism Unbounded.
That's, you put it out in the world, so I guess it's not too early to announce. No, we've been talking about this for a while, and I think it's the result of we've all been to autism conferences. I've been to ABA conferences. We've been to OT conferences, and everybody speaks in their field. But we wanted to introduce an idea, and I think it took Polaris Academy to make it a reality. And that was, what could you do with ABA, with OT, with speech, if you didn't have insurance restrictions, if you didn't have Medicaid oversight? In other words, if you just took the practitioner and said, if a child didn't have to qualify,
right,
and you weren't governed by state departments on what you could or couldn't do with your craft, and you just got to be the practitioner and decide, what could you do with ABA? What could you do if you blended ABA with OT? What could you do with speech? If a child didn't qualify for speech, but your talents were helping somebody, transition to adulthood, learn how to flirt, learn how to actually interview for a job. Like, what could you do in your trade craft if you didn't have the handcuffs of insurance and medical regulation? And that's the Autism Unbounded. That's the what if. That's the what's possible if you really just look at helping this group, this crowd, these parents holistically, and that's going to be the focus of Autism Unbounded.
Yeah, and it's going to be coming this spring, folks. We are really excited. More details going to come out. And to that point, Nathan, I can't tell the company. I can't say the name of the insurance company, but guess who's actually really excited about this as well?
No,
insurance companies. Which I thought that was interesting because I thought insurance are like, no, you have to do it this way. No, actually the opposite.
They're looking for
newer ways, newer approaches, and they're actually more forward thinking than I thought. And so the more we're in this industry, the more I'm really happy with all the stakeholders. There's a lot of great people out here, and all they need is a vision and proven resources and showing like the model that we've created, and we can show them the results. They're right on board with us. So couldn't be happier. So, all right, folks, let's get over to our Father's Days. So you guys we're three good fathers here. Let's see how many kids do you have?
Well, you win. I have 3. I'm the low man on the totem.
Yeah.
What do you have? 10, 15? What is it?
Well, I have 6.
Okay.
But I always say that my wife has 7.
So Aaron, you and I combined have 7. So we're half the room and Brad's the other half.
Yeah.
So 14, including myself.
Well, you have daughters. See, Nathan and I only have boys.
I know.
So you
My
are
daughters
the
are
unicorn
fun.
in the room.
They are a whole bundle of fun.
Yeah.
Yes,
I have a granddaughter.
I love my daughters. They are. It's funny because like I see my boy and he's a teenager and he's like, "What's up, Dad?" But then my teenage daughter, she always gives me a hug. I'm like, "Oh, thank you. That's always really, really nice." Yeah. So let's talk about some family relationships real quick. Let's first start off with, I know guys don't like to talk about this, but I think it's really important to talk about men's health, right? So we always talk about co-regulation, right? How do we regulate ourselves before we can go out and regulate others, right? So what do you guys do to give yourself your own like therapy, regulation? Like how do you guys take care of yourself so that you're always performing at your best?
Mine is music, as I said. Music is very therapeutic. It's just very calming. I do like television, but I like the same shows over and over again so that I can just think and process things. And then just physical activity. My wife and I are very close. So even this morning, it was a bike ride for coffee and just kind of being together, being outside. My wonderful dogs, they're therapy. Even myself, they joke about it, why I started 2 new puppies. But, just that time of caring for somebody else and then seeing their joy. So, self-regulation comes by taking care of others, but also taking care of yourself. But that physical activity and then that opportunity to decompress is vital.
Okay. Nathan, what do you do?
Yeah, I'm going to take a step back, Brad. I think the first step is recognizing that you are dysregulated or needing to regulate. As men, I think it's very easy for us to just not accept that that's even a thing. Mm-hmm. Right? We're taught at a young age, right or wrong, just suck it up, work through it, whatever. And we learn to bottle, hold up, and just trudge forward. And so why releases are that would great to talk about the releases, but I'd actually like to just take an introspective moment and it's okay to say, I'm stressed. I am dysregulated. And we talk about dysregulation a lot with the autistic community. Everybody has a nervous system and everybody gets triggered. And being able to identify, number one, that I am triggered. And then number two, what do I do in my triggered state? We've talked about fight, flight, flee, fawn, free. There's a whole bunch of different iterations of what you do when your nervous system is activated. But understanding your response type will help you identify why you do certain things, maybe some of the conflicts you have either with your children or with your spouse, frustrations at work. Like it's decoding yourself first, I think is big.
Which guys don't do.
No.
That's why I said like this is a kind of an unpopular topic, but a very popular topic that we need to talk about is how do you decode yourself? Like how do you, like women are so good of listening to themselves.
Yep.
We stink at it.
Yeah,
because we just muscle through it.
And that's been for me. Listen, I wasn't even a podcast listener before we started this, Brad. I think the very first podcast I listened to was our podcast. I've since started listening to a lot more.
I'm glad you're our biggest fan.
But I can tell you, every time we've had guests on that talk about body regulation and learning about your response types, we had a relationship coach on, and I'm listening to all this advice for our autistic population, right? And I'm finding myself going, wow, I need that. Mm-hmm. Well, I could benefit from that. And the truth is, as men, we are really good at being providers. Like we like to, I think we mask as good as any autistic kid because we always put on the strong front. I've got things covered. I'm taking care of it. Like that's the role we take on. But if we are vulnerable enough to take that off and admit the times when we are stressed, when we are struggling, and ask ourselves the question, how do I feel when I'm like that? Can I recognize it? And how do I act when it's there? Am I a fighter? Am I a fleer? Mm-hmm. And can I communicate that in a way that makes sense to my spouse, to my kids? And then can I find those things, whether it's music or a TV show or a book or a walk or exercise, that help me reset Now I can take a proactive approach to my own health. But sometimes I think we feed the beast, right? We just go to the show, we listen to the music, and we don't ever tell anybody we're dysregulated. And our spouses are wondering, are you disconnected? Are you mad? But we don't communicate that. We just go to our cave, do our thing, and come out. And all of a sudden we're great. And everybody around us is like, I don't get it. Do we have bear dad or happy dad?
I know.
And we don't talk because we go right back into masking again. So I think dads could learn a lesson from all of the nervous system and regulation topics we brought on for autistic kids. I think that would improve their overall health as well. So sorry if I took a step backwards, but it really is as important for us as dads to learn these trades and tricks so that we can show up. And more importantly, we call this the Polaris connection, so that we can connect too. I think as much as an autistic population, I think dads are disconnected just as much. We don't like to open, we don't like to share. But if we can drop those walls and learn to regulate, our relationship with our wives improve, our relationships with our kids, with our friends, our colleagues, our community. And that's something that I think would be, it has been my biggest, something I'm working on after all these episodes and insights. And if I could share one thing, it's dad, stop masking, open up, be aware of who you are, what you need, and don't be afraid to admit those times when you don't have it all together, and that's okay.
Well, and I bet you if we poll our audience, we have more females listening to, like more moms listening to our podcast than dads. And I would hope to switch that. That would be awesome if we could.
Yeah, ask your husbands to listen.
Well, and I think the best way to do that, because I know sometimes it's hard as a spouse, maybe if you just like drop a line, like you don't tell them to listen, you're like, oh, hey, I just heard this really cool thing. I thought you would like it too. Like just like a little subtlety. Wives out there, I'll tell you one thing that my wife did to me that really, really helped, and she didn't even tell me. She just did it. So every time I come home, I don't know if you guys are like this, but when I come home, I work all day and, it's intense and we have a lot of things doing, a lot of demands, whatnot. And I feel like I have to prepare myself to come home because I don't want to be grumpy dad. Right? I don't want to come in and be bear dad. So anyways, so I would come home, and one thing my wife will do is she's like, oh, I'm glad you're home. Why don't you go get yourself ready and then come out when you're ready? And so I'm like, oh. So I go into my room, take a little shower, get redressed, then I come back out and I'm happy dad. Mm-hmm. It allows me to we talk about transitions all the time in autism. Well, I've never thought of that as being for my own personal transition. To come home and okay, now I can be the Danny Tanner or the Mr. Rogers. Now I can, put on my shoes and my coat and now I can be dad, because all day long I'm boss guy and now I have to come home and be dad, so I thought that was a really, Aaron, anything that your wife does to help you that you can think of?
She's my best friend, so it's just good. So we really are in lock and step, but I'll tell you, I'm at a different point in my life, being a parent in those early days, as I hear you two talk, give yourself grace. When I was in the thick of it, my youngest son is 21 and they're in college, but I remember, and that's why I love what I do, seeing the families and the 8-year-olds and the 10-year-olds and the 12s and knowing all that it goes through. And, I'm just in a different phase, but I love seeing family. I always say my job, I am a family man, and I've learned everything I do from the moms and the fathers. I've watched experts in the field of parenting, and I've also learned what not to do because I've made lots of mistakes. See, I'm just the opposite of Nathan. There's no guessing on how I am so transparent that I couldn't hide it if I tried. I'm just a vocal person, and I will tell you exactly whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent, but that's how I process. So that's the situation. So I think grace is a big one, being able to identify, acknowledge that mistakes are good. I always tell my families and my kids, failure is an option. I had somebody say, oh, you must hate failure. And I'm like, well, I embrace failure. It's not that I enjoy failure, but there's always an opportunity to learn. I mean, when you do anything, you want to reflect on what happened and why. Making the same mistake could happen, but I want to make it a little bit better. So.
Yeah. Well, and we can always go back to hey, I wish we could have done things a little bit better this way or that way. And like you said, give yourself some grace, do the best you can. as a father, we have a lot of things I hate to choose the word balance because I really don't believe that. I don't really believe in that concept. I mean, just like, you just kind of go for it. But, Aaron, you have 3 kids. Nathan, you have 4. I have 6. How do you navigate with all the siblings, especially Nathan, with your autistic boy, how do you navigate the siblings to get, attention or their needs met as you're working with a neurotypical child?
That's
a neurodiverse child.
No, that's a good question. And it's one that we're still exploring, if I'm going to be honest. For a while, the truth was everybody in our family made sacrifices for our kid on the spectrum because the services and the time commitment for that just consumed everything. It's part of why we wanted to start Polaris Academy. We wanted to find that solution where we didn't have to go so many places, we can consolidate. But parenting is still different. It's hard to explain to one of my boys why I'm treating my oldest differently, why I'm rewarding differently, because they'd go, why don't I get that too? Oh, because you're not the same.
You never built a school for me.
Yeah. The thing is, I'd be willing to, but that's not what they need. There's a saying, Brad, equal isn't fair and fair isn't equal. And one thing we've tried to teach my boys is they're all different. Forget that I have one that's autistic. I've got another he's kind of gifted musically, but he's almost perfectionistic. And I have another that is almost like our nerd, but he's a goofball. He's the most socially adept kid I've ever had. And then I got my youngest caboose that is just like fun in the sun. Like he instead of having nightmares and crying, he sleep laughs, which is awesome. And so they're all different. And forget that one's neurodiverse. They are all different. Yeah. And learning to parent different, I think it makes it intentional. It's really easy, I think, in today's society to let community raise your kids. And what I mean by that is we have all these resources. We have social media and electronic tools and online. And so we are almost over barraged with all these things our kids could be doing. And so it makes it really easy for us as parents to not be engaged. Well, they've got sports today, they've got the after school. And if you honestly ask yourself the question, when do I get to be dad or when do I get to be mom? And in those times I'm with my kids, what am I intentionally doing to further develop each of them individually? It's a lot of work. My wife, she's a stay-at-home mom, and that's a choice we were able to make just because of our circumstance. But Brad, what she does is harder and I think more impactful and meaningful than anything I do outside the home. It is a nonstop, never-ending attempt of how do I keep raising, growing, cultivating. And I think that to answer your original question, what do you do when you have kids that are typical versus neurodiverse? I think open communication is good. I think telling them the reason why you're doing things is important. As parents, it's really easy when a kid says, I want this, and we say no. Why? Because I said so. Yeah. I think because I said so is the worst answer we could ever give. And if we can be honest and explain our reasoning and let them know our intentions as parents, then they grow up understanding differences. They grow up appreciating them. And I think over time, it helps them feel more seen and more understood. Because if I just parent them all the same, then none of them are unique, right? So it also helps them know mom and dad see me, they understand me, and they then feel more understood if I'm telling them I'm doing this for this reason that's particular to them.
Yeah, Aaron, what do you do to Nathan's point? What do you do with your kids so you don't feel like, I guess, some type of balance? Again, I hate to use that word balance, but how do you do that with siblings?
Well, and he's just got me thinking a lot, but I don't have a neurodivergent student, but my trauma in my life has been cancer. I've gone through it twice with my oldest son getting diagnosed and then my granddaughter. And so I can relate to a lot of those aspects when so much attention is given to a child or a sibling because of a traumatic situation they're going through. It's tough. So you have to balance that and you have to take down the barriers. I think just that quality time is how we've managed that. And then to watch my son, watch him work with his daughter that went through cancer is, and I've learned this from fathers and mothers, that mother or daddy date, it's always important just to go spend some quality time. I masked a lot and we did a lot of sports, but that ride to Peoria for an hour and a half or to San Diego, it was a great time. Now they still give me grief about, oh gosh, Dad's pissed off because I didn't strike out all 3 guys in the inning, the moment of silence for an hour, but the fond memories that they have of just being alone together. Because when you're in a car together, we've learned a lot about each other. And going through something as traumatic as cancer is I learned to quit mask and saying everything is going to be okay, because sometimes it's just not.
Yeah.
And learning to listen to my son, I when he was in the middle of a 3-year treatment, and you'll get through this, everything will be fine. And he's like, Dad, it's not okay. And I said, you know what, you're right. And he goes, can you just listen and not have an answer to everything? And I'm like, oh. And so I had to learn how to listen and not always solve, because as adults, we feel like we have to have the answers. And sometimes we don't. And sometimes it's just prayer, faith, and listening and just being that person, because sometimes life does suck. Mm-hmm. And so you have to embrace the suck. And then once you get through that, then that's where the beauty. So you have to find that beauty, but there are days it's just tough.
Yeah, it is tough. And I think just, on my personal experience with my kids is there really isn't, it's hard to do balance, because sometimes you connect with one kid over another one. So I just try to identify that. I'm like, wow, I am spending a little bit more time with this child. Maybe let me spend some more time with my daughter. She loves doing flips, and I think it's cool. It's just not really my jam, but it's her jam. And so I'll just try to just be with her as she's doing it. And I think as a father, we think of the word sacrifice, which is your time, energy, and your talent. And that's what you got to do for your kids. And, you don't have to, I love how you said, listen. Think about just, our autistic friends out there. How many times do we hear that? Just play with them. Mm-hmm. You just listen, just be there, just being present. I think just show them that you care.
Well, and I love Legos. And I always loved when I would say, okay, the kids can do it. And we as adults are the worst, because we want to, oh, no, that block goes here.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's okay. That block cannot go there. And that doesn't mean that I'm soft on them, because when it falls apart, I'm going to be like, it's okay. Sometimes things don't go as planned. Mm-hmm. And so we need to allow for that opportunity to discover for ourselves. It's the old adage of, you can tell them that the stove is hot, but sometimes they got to touch it. And, I don't want you to, and I can tell you no, but they're going to figure it out one way or the other. And so, allowing our kids to talk about it and be safe, that felt safety.
So Father's Day traditions, what do you guys like to do for Father's Day? What is your go-to traditions?
Wow. I'd just be with family. Mine's boring.
Mine's simple. Everything meat. There can be no vegetables.
I'm in on that.
It's all it's all meat, no vegetables.
What's your favorite meat?
All of it.
Brisket, steak, burger, sausage.
The answer is yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So,
all right.
I mean, I welcome it all. You, Nathan,
I can't say we have any formal tradition, and I think my wife hates it every year when she asks, what do you want? 'Cause I am the guy that says, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah,
I'm a gift giver. I love to gift gifts. I never ask for them. And so that I don't know if that's a flaw or not, but I just like to spend time with family. I like good food. I like quiet time. Watch a show, and I'm good to go. Yeah.
Well, guys, thank you so much for being here. Folks, thank you for making us part of your day. Please don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a conversation that inspires connection. Wanted to have a special thanks to our producer, Jesse Palmer, and our marketing director, Dallin Davis. Until next time, happy Father's Day, and let's do some good.